everybody, in another edition of Panomics Podcast, New York Weekly's #1 podcast for 2020. And today we have one of my good friends, fellow podcasters, entrepreneur, businessman, and car guy, Jerome Myers. What's up, Jerome? How you doing, bud?
Hey, good to be in with you, bro. I don't even know if I could call you Dave. Maybe I need to call you David. How formal are we on this thing, man?
Yo, man, we can be as cool as we want to be, man.
Beautiful, man. Thanks for having me in, man. It's super grateful for the opportunity. Seriously.
I'm glad to have you, man. I appreciate, us talking and connecting again. Let our audience know a little bit more about you and your story and kind of just what makes you such an amazing, impactful person.
You're far too kind with the words, man. So look, man, I'm a corporate America dropout. Back in 2015, I was employee number 2 at a Fortune 550 company. I was helping start a division, and we went from 2 to about 175 people on my team in about 9 months. By the end of the year, we did about $20 million in revenue, 30% profit margins. And I got a phone call, David, at 4:55 on December 24th, and it was something like this. Hey, Jerome, you and I have been going back and forth on this for about 2 or 3 weeks now. I made a decision. We're going to lay off half of them. And I start to negotiate and try to get my guy, who I saw once a quarter face to face and every other week on the phone, to say, nah, we need to figure out another way to save these people's roles. And he said, nah, I've already made up my mind. This isn't a discussion. I'm informing you of what's going to happen. And I kept trying to argue with him, and he finally stopped me and he said, Jerome, it's 4:59 on Christmas Eve. I'm going to spend the rest of the year with my family. I'll talk to you next year. And he hung up the phone, and it was at that moment that I realized, like, I wasn't really in control. Like, as long as I was still in corporate America, somebody else could make decisions for me, even if I didn't agree with them. And it wasn't until the next year where, and I had to do the same thing again, that I decided that I was going to actually take responsibility for my part in the situation. I had the opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And I didn't. I just locked in and did what I was told to do like a good soldier. But I brand myself as somebody who's a free thinker, somebody who has the choice. And so what I want to do is help spread that message and help other people exit the matrix, whatever that may be. And so I got it deep into real estate, built a pretty decent sized apartment portfolio, and now I'm pivoting and going full on into what my true talent is, which is helping people go to that next level. And so I work with people who I call apex performers around the country, helping them scale their businesses, leave corporate America, and really grow from a leadership standpoint, because I think that is a difference maker between them being who they are and what they want to become.
Yo, man, that's amazing to hear, and the corporate America thing is such an interesting thing. And I'll tell you why. We grew up same age group, right? So when you grew up and I grew up, I just saw this meme the other day, and it was 1987 millionaires, and it was Michael Douglas on Wall Street standing in New York pointing one way, and it said 2022 millionaires, and it's some kid sitting in his mom's house with like his bed undone in his room and like doing crypto stuff, right? And it's so funny because the corporate has shifted, and such a fundamental shift that's happened, right? But when you're in the corporate side, it's like you learn all these amazing things like structure and business, and it's such an elite name, and it gives you a sense of belonging, right? And like it's like what you wanted, what you dream, and then you start playing with it, and you start realizing, whoa, everyone's got an ego. Accountants, finance, it doesn't matter who they are. They all got an ego, and they all want to climb to the top, and they all have the same thing. And it's like, what didn't matter what industry it was, they're all the same thing. But I do understand that terrible feeling on Christmas Eve of firing someone and letting them go and feeling absolutely horrible, and it's out of your control. And you're most likely the one who had to deliver the message, which made it probably 1,000 times worse at that point, and had nothing to do with you.
Bro,
So I commend you for that.
we're not talking about a person. We're talking about 80 people, right? And I consider it a traumatic event because I'd never been impacted or anything before. So this concept, and I'll take it a step further just so the listeners can feel all of the grief that I felt. One of the people who laid off ended up committing suicide, right? They decided after their spouse and children leaving and after losing their home and after losing their car that they just didn't want to be here anymore. And they checked out. And, you know, what do you do with that? Right? Did I pull the trigger? No. But did I start a cascading event? I had a huge hand in it. And so, like, how could I get away from that? How could I make sure that I had agency over what I did? And I did have control over my participation. I could always say I wasn't going to do it, but that wasn't what I did. I participated in the system, the matrix, and I'm over that, man. And so really focused on helping people figure out how to not be a part of stuff that they don't believe in. How can you really walk in that space with your morals and values?
Yeah, I love and I hate that it came from an experience like that, but I love that you've been able to take it and make it such a powerful thing to help others. The matrix that we call it. When I tell people, I didn't get a chance to finish university, or when I tell people that I came here homeless, like they're just mind blown by it, and they're like, "Well, how did you do that?" I'm like, "But why can't you do that?" And I always pivot to the there is no spoon, right? We
There
we
is
talked
no
about this, right?
spoon.
There is no spoon, but that deep meaning, is that they're just who says you can't do it? This is what it comes down to, right? And so as you're pivoting and you make such an amazing change, tell me, it's a really scary moment to leave corporate. It's a really you have to check yourself as a man. I mean, pretty quickly. I mean, it's a hard reality check. I'll be straight up with everyone out there. Leaving Deloitte to do what I've done has not been as beautiful on Instagrams as it seems. I'm sure my boy Jerome could absolutely agree with me. It's scary. There's no guaranteed paycheck. You are questioning if you're making the right decision. You are always worried about the people you have to feed first before you feed yourself. You almost have to be the most biggest rah person I've ever seen. Did you face that? How did you do that? How did you build up the strength to do such an amazing things that you've done?
David, I mean, think about it, bro. The first question I was asked is, "How are you gonna get insurance?" Right? And that was the beginning and the end of the conversation with my mom because she was like, "Well, you gotta have a job to get insurance." And I was like, "Well, I don't think so. I think you can go buy it from the marketplace," right? So that was the beginning of it. But there was this thing, man. I was just fed up. I was fed up with everything. And I think a lot of people end up in a space where it's like, I'm trapped. I'm stuck. I gotta have something else. And what I have, I don't care if I fail, I gotta do it. And I'm in a space where I got a 6,000 square foot house. I got the exotic car. And Gary Vee always talks about, well, can you sell the house? Can you sell the car? And actually to find that happiness or that freedom. And I didn't. I was like, oh, I'll just keep servicing the debt. I'll figure it out. And when my revenue went to zero because I didn't have a well created exit plan, savings started to dry up quick. Right. And then I was doing real estate and I like the apartment stuff didn't work out right away. I thought I was just going to go buy a building. I walk into the bank. They say, ah, man, you don't have any experience. I was like, man, I'm a licensed engineer. I got my MBA. What credentials you want? I got all of them. And they're like, yeah, have you bought a building of similar size and executed this business plan before? I got nothing for that. No. He's like, well, you
Yeah.
need a partner. I don't know anybody. And so I'm running down all of these dead ends, right? And the door is locked and I'm trying to get in. Nothing was working, man. And then you start to question your capacity. You start to question, well, was I really good? Was I able to do it? And where I ended up was I am. And I just had to continue to believe in myself. And there's going to be one or two people who you really think are going to step in and help you get through the thing who are going to let you down for anybody who's considering this decision. And then there's going to be two or three people who you didn't expect to show up for you who are going to appear out of nowhere and you're going to count on them to help you get through the way. Nobody makes it through the desert. And that's what I call that period where you're figuring it out. Nobody makes it through the desert alone. And the quicker that you can get connected with a guide to help walk you through that thing, you'll be able to connect from the jungle where it's all cushy and you got fruit and you got water to the next oasis so you can get more water and then another one. And then if you do it long enough, you eventually end up in paradise. And when you're in the desert, everything looks the same, man. You can get lost. And so you need somebody who's a skilled guide, from my perspective, to help expedite the process so you don't die out there from thirst.
Yeah, man. It's that's probably one of the most realist things I've heard on this podcast because it sucks. It's
It's
hard,
bad.
dude. It's
There's
like, dude, I've never had so many conversations with myself going, "What the hell are you doing?" And then
it's
have to
so much
pretend.
easier.
Yeah, it
It's so
is.
much easier to go back to the thing. They call
Mhm.
you when you leave. It's like, what do you want to do? Like they try to suck you back in. And I was like, man, no, I'm
Yeah,
out here. Like the recruiters never called as much.
right.
The people who you used to work with when you leave is like, man, is that little thing you're working on working out for you?
Yeah,
No, it's not working out, but I'm not going back to that
yeah,
because once you experience the freedom, man, how can you? I
yeah.
mean, the life that you live today, even when it was bad, it was scary, especially if you define yourself as a provider, right? A money creator, a wealth creator, and then you see it going the wrong way. It's like, man, what am I doing? Am I out of character? But I believe you have to touch the bottom of the pool before you can actually truly understand where you can go. If you don't
Mhm.
go down and feel like you're drowning, I don't think you actually understand the limits. And that's why I like Goggins and some of the other people who seem to be extreme. But I think you got to have that mindset, man, and make it through. I really do.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, man. That mindset is the most significant thing, and it gets dark, and I think a lot of people don't realize that, and it gets hard, but we've all had to go through it, right? Your Elons and your Cubans and your Jeromes and your David Chens, like we've had to go through it to really try to make it work. And the one thing I just love to hear and saying is you're gonna have two other people that you were grinding with that let you down. And I want everyone to know this. It's not your fault. You beat yourself up. Like that's the worst part is like you legitimately beat yourself up because you think you're such a horrible person because you want to so badly be a good leader and take everyone with you. And I read this quote. It said, "I'm too busy trying to take everyone to the table when the people I took to the table didn't even want me at the table."
They don't want you. I still remember a guy I did a deal with, and he just bailed on me. He went and got a job, and I'm like, dude, like I'm counting on you to do this and do that. And I eventually wrote a check to get out of the deal, and this was something that was supposed to make money. And at that point, I didn't have the extra money to pay to get out of the deal. But you got to know where you are, right? You got to have your integrity. You always got to know that this is if somebody was to say that this happened, is it consistent with how I would want to be remembered? And if you can stay true to that through all of the turmoil, when you get to the other side, when you get to paradise, when you get to that heaven that you're seeking, nobody can take anything away from you. There's a lot of people who got there a grimy way, and they're looking over their shoulder. And then there's other people who did it with integrity. And those folks who do it with integrity, they can stand tall. They don't mind being in the public. They don't feel like those bones are going to fall out the closet because they did this or did that to try to shortcut the process, man. And I think that's really where you want to be, because the peace is always going to be worth more than the money.
Yeah, man. You know that it's interesting. I recently had a experience with one of my mentees who I did 10 months with working with together. And lack of communication turns out to become someone who's now my enemy, who doesn't like me, but has never told me what the problem was and won't talk to me about it. And then grimy, being very grimy about it, talking to other people. And I want a lot of people to understand this. When people talk about you, there's only a couple sets of people. There's the sheep who listen to whatever they want, just no matter who you are, what levels you are, they just believe what they want to believe. Those people are not in your lives, good riddance, right? There's a second type where they start questioning, they'll ask you, they'll evaluate you, but they'll still follow that person, even though you did something good with them. There's third ones that stay strong and true to you. And I count that as a blessing as you're telling that where people come in and at the moment it hurts so bad, right? This guy that you're working with, and then it's like, man, that was probably the best blessing. And then I read, you're learning the same lessons over and over again. Just it's just the same people in different forms until you learn that lesson.
1,000%, man. And so, I bucket it a little bit different. So I got this 6 level model for our coaching practice. And it starts with self-image, then goes to relationships, then work. Those bottom three is where all the stress in your life comes from. Then it goes to health, prosperity, and significance. Everybody on your social media wants to talk about prosperity and significance. They don't want to do anything with the other ones except for the gym folks, the people who've got their personal brand or their physical fitness brands, whatever you want to call them. But I like to do that inner work in the bottom 3 levels. With the relationships, you put those three really eloquently. I call them mutually beneficial relationships. This is give and take, it's natural, there's flow. Then there's relationships that aren't mutually beneficial, but can be reshaped as mutually beneficial. Those are the ones where somebody's hanging out, they realize that they're getting more from the relationship than they're giving, but they're open to giving more. You just have to ask for it. And then there's those relationships that are not mutually beneficial and never will be. Those folks, bye bye, right? We need to sever those relations. They're the vampires, they're the people who are just going to take from you. And so when we start working with people, the whole goal there is to help them get the people in their life who are actually going to be there for them and then get the other ones away because they're a distraction. They're going to take energy from them that honestly they don't have to give. The folks who are apex performers, the people who are peak performers, they are comfortable being source, right? People come to them, they need help. People aren't writing to see how they're doing. They're not sending them gifts when they don't need gifts. Nobody's checking on them. It's always, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And so that's why the relationships have to be mutually beneficial because if they're not, they'll just be defunct. They'll be bankrupt. They won't have enough in their tank to take care of themselves and the people that they love. And so when that lady on the airplane or that guy on the airplane tells you, "Hey, put your mask on first," this is the reason why. You can't help anybody if you don't have what you need to have. So the relationship piece is so important because it can change your entire life if you're with the right people. And that lesson that I learned to bring it full circle from that person was if the person's not bringing value to the relationship, you got to get rid of that relationship early on because if not, it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you big, man.
Yeah, man, that's such a beautiful, impactful, and important lesson, and not just in business but in life because it's all the same, right? There is no spoon. That it has to be the mutual side of it and going from there. As we listen to you and your podcast, and I was a fortunate guest to be on your podcast and going from there. Tell us a little bit about the podcast and some of the amazing
Yeah.
things you're talking about because it's so deep with such a great perspective. I think it'd be very impactful for our audiences to kind of tune into some things that you're talking about.
Yeah, so DreamCatchers, you just dropped, man. It just came out, and I mean, we're getting rave reviews on that episode. But DreamCatchers tells the stories of people who've exited the Matrix. We get the tools, tips, and techniques they use to make their dream a reality. I think there's a bunch of hustle culture, right? Run, 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 but you don't ever catch anything, right? You're chasing your dreams. And we want to emphasize the point of completion. We want to emphasize that you can actually attain things. You don't have to be in perpetual motion chasing things and they're eluding you. A lot of times we say, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get the new car. I'll be happy when I get the house. I'll be happy when I get married. But your happiness is in you right now. And if you actually set a goal and you achieve it, you need to celebrate it instead of moving to the next thing. There's so much that we can take away from people who actually find contentment. And there's always going to be a faster car. There's always going to be a bigger plane. There's always, whatever your ambition is, there's always going to be something that's the next level. But what is your enough? And once you have your enough, can you actually be satisfied with that? Because if not, then you're just going to find yourself doing things that you don't really want to do to impress people who don't even really care. And you're end up in this space where you're unhappy because you're trying to do stuff that's not true to who you are.
Yep, that's the ego is not your amigo, man. I mean, ego is that greatest qualifier of why you do things and when you do them, how you do them. And I love that you say that, man. I think it's just so true. And I love that you get to share that message on your podcast with all those people on Dreamcatchers because the reality is, like you said, I mean, people take shortcuts. They do bad things to hurt people that they love because their ego got in the way. And at the end, when they get to where they think they're going to get, they're so miserable, and they're so unhappy, and or they're constantly cheating on significant others because they don't appreciate their kids and things that they have and their wife, and so they built these stories around, and it's just so blinding. It's the matrix that you talk about, man, and it's crazy. And you talk about the matrix. Have you seen the new one?
Of course, I saw it on opening night. I brought in at least 10 of the folks that I was working with, did a kind of a client appreciation event, made a whole thing of it. We all went in, tried to buy the whole theater out, and yeah, man, I saw it.
What'd you think? Because a lot of our bases and experiences are we talk about this matrix a lot, and people might think we're movie nuts, but there's a real significant meaning behind this. I mean, there really is. There's a lot of deep dive Eastern and Western philosophies when you really pay attention to correlations. But what'd you think
Yeah,
about the new one, and how has it helped, or shape you with your next journey and thoughtfulness of things?
the thing that hit me the hardest, and it might be a spoiler alert, but it's okay, is, when they talked about the fact that you know what to do. So it's an illusion of choice, right? It's an illusion of choice. You know what you have to do, but are you willing to do it? And David, I challenge people all the time, man, because I know there's a bunch of people out there who've got these dreams and they've been told, be practical, be reasonable. Back to your statement about, why can't you? Right. And I'm saying you can, right? Is my thesis on life is that your dreams should be real. And because of that, I think I'm I'm required to ask people, what do you really want out of life? And can you do it? Or what are you going to do to do it? When you think you actually have a choice on not doing the thing, that's when things get messy because there's somebody that you haven't met who's counting on you to do your thing so that they can do their thing. And you can literally extinguish something that is transformational for the world by not doing what you're supposed to do. You don't have a choice. Like it's an obligation. You can choose to ignore that obligation. And that right there was the game changer for me in a movie. And then, the other thing is, man, I got two daughters, right? And to see how the women helped Neo get to the place that he needed to go, and just understanding that like we can't just get rid of half the population and say they just need to be doing nothing or just waiting for somebody to come take care of them. Like they can contribute in a meaningful way as well. And I want that for my daughters. I don't want them to have to be dependent on somebody. If they choose to be dependent on somebody, that's completely different. I don't want them to feel like they have to.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love I've never had this discussion with anyone, so this is going to be a fun one. You know, I was pretty amazed, man. I think we put the story going from there, but the meaningful lessons that you talk about, man. I mean, it's so true. Either want to or you don't, right? And I tell a lot of that to my team members, a lot of people around me. I'm like, dude, either you want to make this or happen or not, right? Like, you know where to get spring break tickets to Cancun, but you can't figure out to research something that's important to you, right? Or the movie times, but you don't know and care about, how to become better and improve your life. And sometimes like hesitation of waiting because you think at a much higher macro level can also slow things down, but it doesn't mean it's not right. It means that you're ready when the timing is ready. And that was the other thing I took away, right? Like he could have awoke, he was aware of it, his senses were there, just like you're aware that you can be better now and change that body you want to change and really get to the level that you've always promised yourself that you deserve and get that thing hitting in the job and hitting it to the next level, but you choose to wait for no damn reason. All right, so Jerome, I love that you said that, man. That's an absolute amazing thing that you've been saying, man, and it's crazy to me.
I love it, bro. Like, and then at the end, like the end was just so aggressive, right? The way that the fact that the psychiatrist was issuing the blue pills to the guy who took the red pill is just blows my mind that you can literally be in a situation where you're taking guidance from somebody who is just turning and spinning it around for the ability to control you. And this goes so much deeper, right? Because so many of us have been programmed to believe that we're inferior or we need somebody else to do the thing for us. Like, you don't have to ask anybody for permission. If you need permission, I'm giving it to you. That thing that you're supposed to do, that dream that you have, it should be real and you should go do it. So now what's your excuse?
Dang, I like that. That's just so much fire. That's got the fire in the back, man. So much fire, so much heat. Bringing it to Panic Economics Podcast in 2022. Jerome, what are you working on next? What's the next big steps for my man over here? Besides a cool car rally that might be coming up, what else?
Man, listen, I'm doubling down, man. So I went through this. I don't even know if I can call it a midlife crisis. I will for the sake of this discussion of, am I a real estate guy that coaches, or am I a coach who happens to have expertise in real estate? And I decided that it's the latter, man. My true passion is to help inspire people to go to that next level and live that life that they know that they can, but don't know how. Right. So I'm the guy that gets down in, you know what you want. I'll help you figure out your why and the how so that you can actually make it a reality. So just really doubling down on that, tearing websites down, coming back out, and really just pushing people to go to that next level, man. I had embarrassment about it because it was like, man, everybody's a coach, everybody can do the thing. But when people are saying, like, I doubled my revenue in 6 months in my business, I didn't have a father figure to look up to until I started spending time with you. I keep going down the list, man. It's just like, why am I not actually sharing the gift that I have with the world because of what I think somebody who doesn't know me may think? And that's honestly something that our recording did, bro. Like, when you talked about people not knowing you and then making you a villain, and how like that hurt, but you were okay with it because you knew that there wasn't anybody out there who could actually say something negative, that you did something negative to them. I was like, man, if you just live your life the right way, if you're good to people, if you're nice to people, if you make sure that your clients get results and you only work with people who are willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes to get the result, then you don't have anything to worry about. There is nobody who's going to call you snake oil salesman or a freaking scam or some of the other stuff that you feared, based on the fact that you're in this industry that's being littered with people who don't actually have a passion or desire to make other people's lives better. They're just looking for a quick check.
Yep. That's 100% true, man. And let everyone understand that in this journey, man. It is a reality. This is how a lot of people are. It's great for you to hear from two different sides of the world, from two different coins, two different ventures, because it's so worth it in the end, and it's so impactful and it's so amazing. But we'd be lying to you if it wasn't tough. And
Bro,
it's tough everywhere. It's tough everywhere, right?
if you're going to live an extraordinary life, it's going to require extraordinary effort and probably some
Boom.
extraordinary risk, right? Like, you don't get to do the things that we get to do by being mediocre or average. Like, it's going to take something special. And if you're questioning whether or not you're special, I can emphasize to you, without even talking to you, that you are. You just have to be in that zone of genius, right? A fish can't climb a tree, a monkey can barely swim. But if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you can actually have a real impact on the world, man. So I I know people don't get talked to like that often, man, but I'm here to bring it to them because it's real.
Woo! So much power, so much heat. We appreciate you, Jerome. We appreciate the time today, man. This has been so amazing. Now, go ahead and tell us your social media handles as well as where they can find your awesome podcast.
Yeah, man. So podcast is everywhere. DreamCatchers podcast. You'll see me up there smiling. Hopefully, bring you some inspiration, education, and direction. And then social media, Myers Methods on Instagram is where you'll find me. And then on LinkedIn, Jerome Myers. I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. I play pretty heavy on LinkedIn. So I'd love to see you guys over there. Let's get in the DMs. Let's have some chats.
Yo, appreciate it, Jerome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being a continued blessing in this world. And I really look forward to all the amazing things that you're going to be doing that are going to change it And hit up my man. He knows what he's talking about. For David Chen, Jerome Myers, Pat Knox Podcast 2022, we are back. We'll see you guys next week. Talk to you later. Good night. And remember, Panda loves you. We out.
Check it out.